Hey, so I decided in honor of the Nuka World DLC for Fallout 4 dropping tomorrow that I might sort of re-review this game a little bit and add a little bit more to my original review I did. I originally reviewed this game when I had, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 hours in it. I now have well over 200. And I just still see so much hate for this game that I think is really irrational online, but I also still see some praise for it that is still pretty irrational. And I feel like I can more coherently and more concisely put together what I think the pros and cons of the game are. So now that I have the Fall Harbor DLC, that was more enjoyable than a lot of the base game was for me. And now that I've done more than just assist the Brotherhood of Steel, I've also assisted the Railroad and the Institute. I have a better feel for the differences, the major differences in the way the game feels depending on certain paths you take. Getting different houses or different settlements that I hadn't before, trying out different mechanics that I hadn't before. I still find settlement building and defending really tedious. As a gamer who doesn't mind grinding at all, and in fact somewhat prefers those kinds of grinding RPGs, that's really obnoxious and annoying. And it's the same thing that wasn't fun about GTA 4. Getting nagged to do bitch work constantly when you're in the middle of something is really upsetting. I also can feel that after talking to a lot of my friends who played the game, who said it doesn't feel like a Fallout game, doesn't feel right. I think that has a lot to do with the visual aesthetic. Although it's really cool that there's actually like foliage and more urban environments and more sprawling places with a lot more blind corners. That's a good thing about the game. That there's weather effects, that there's fog, and sometimes the game looks downright beautiful on a clear day. That's a big plus, and the game looks the best, honestly, kind of outside of a lot of these urban environments. There's something about the next gen kind of graphics that takes away from the grittiness that was present in Fallout 3 and New Vegas. There's some sort of kind of shininess to even the ugliest objects, like when a pile of rubble is reflecting light that bothers a person on a subconscious level. It sort of taps into that uncanny valley effect of something being seriously wrong, but you not really noticing exactly what that is. A lot of the guns do feel really samey, especially guns like the assault rifle and combat rifle. And there's less of the issue that was present in previous games where, unless you're playing on low difficulty, so many guns are just not viable late game that you just cannot use them. They don't do enough damage. It is still something of kind of a problem. And once you have a character who's in like level 90s, the only way you're really going to one-shot anything is with a mini nuke. What do you call it? A fat man that fires too many nukes at once. That's when you can be absolutely assured that that thing is going to fucking die. Other than that, it's not going to happen. Another thing that I think that is a problem with the game that really works against the gamer is that it's allows you too much control over the difficulty of the game. Most of my friends, and I actually mean all of them, all of my friends who don't like this game are people who played Oblivion on low difficulty settings. There are people who played Skyrim on normal. There are people who played Fallout 3 and New Vegas on normal and just happily fucking one-shotted everything to the end of the game. And I guess now that the game has not so good death animations, I guess I've noticed a difference when it comes to the death animations of enemies. If you're using a very high caliber weapon or really powerful explosions, you'll get more of that cool havoc physics shit flying around. You'll get a little bit more of blowing limbs off, and taking the bloody mess perk helps. But one thing that hugely bothered me about the game for a long time of playing it is that enemies would just sort of slump over. And some of the ridiculous physics present in New Vegas and Fallout 3 of enemies going flying away and exploding into bits and seeing their eyeballs pop out of their head and shit, didn't happen in Fallout 4. In fact, I used the railway rifle for quite a long time before I pinned somebody's limb to the wall like it says it does and has done in previous games, and that pissed me off. A lot of the energy weapons are like lame. They don't feel right. They don't feel like they're punching right or vaporizing people right. And it's like, unless you get like the Gauss rifle or a hugely upgraded plasma rifle, you're just kind of feeling bored with certain weaponries. But however, once you get a feel for, like, if you're a gunslinger with a double shot 44 a 44 caliber Magnum, that is badass. Once you're a sniper wandering around with Far Harbor's lever action 4570 rifle, that's awesome. Once you get that 50 cal and you're in downtown Boston and you can hear that loud ass gunshot echoing off of enemies, that's awesome. Certain weapons are unforgivably weak, like missile launchers. Even if you have all the big guns, perk is not. It's not working. It's not doing any damage. Only the Fat Man is really doing it. Certain weapons are hilariously overpowered, and certain armors are hilariously overpowered. For instance, if you're walking around in fully upgraded Exo 1 armor, you're practically invincible. And if you're walking around with a Gatling laser with max big guns, you can kill anything. I played most of the game on either hard or very hard difficulty, and that improved my experience. I would think that the XP payouts are too low unless you play a high intelligence character. And if you're playing a normal mode where you're one-shotting everything and you're not making a lot of experience progress, that's boring. Now, I've gone on too long before explaining it, but I want to explain the way every single person who plays this game should play this game. The savior of Fallout 4 is its newly revamped survival mode. This was not in the game when I last reviewed it. Hardcore mode in New Vegas was cool, but ultimately a letdown. Especially if you were using the Big Empty DLC, it's somehow fucked with. You don't have to drink hardly any water, and you hardly ever have to eat food, and you can sleep like once a month. There's something about the game where it doesn't really make you do those survival things. And that is not the case in survival Fallout 4. This game does make you eat like twice a day. This game does make you drink water like 3 or 4 times a day. This game does make you sleep. Now, what's great about survival mode is it turns the game into a pure survival game. It honestly stops being a Bethesda RPG and starts being a pretty punishingly hard and really fulfilling survival mode. So it does actually make you eat. It actually makes you sleep, and it makes you care what kind of bed you're sleeping in. If you're in a fucking sleeping bag out in the open, you can only sleep for 3 hours, and it will not eventually matter. If you sleep in that kind of sleeping bag, you will start to get tireder and tireder, but you can counteract it with Nuka-Cola, which is awesome. It actually cares what kind of food you eat. If you eat uncooked meat, you'll get sick, and the illnesses really play into how hard survival mode is. I actually had the experience of when I first got to Diamond City, I had some kind of infection where the game was slowly killing me. I was slowly losing, like, I think about 1/6 or 7th of my health every 25 seconds. And I was terrified to wait or sleep. I was afraid I would die. So I sat there eating food in stim packs in the market of Diamond City for roughly 8 or 9 minutes in game until the doctor would wake up and come to work and heal me. That was a cool experience. The fact that the game is constantly punishing you for not eating or sleeping, that you're watching your action points, your maximum action points drain as well as your special stat, is really punishing, because in survival difficulty, that should appeal to the people who don't want enemies to be bullet sponges, because you actually murder the shit out of things. Counterintuitively, you kill things a lot harder in survival difficulty. Not only do enemies not really have the same kind of health they would have on very hard mode, but the longer you stay awake and the longer you kill things, the higher your adrenaline, you have an adrenaline rating now, which I've seen it increase my damage rating up to 50%, which is massive, especially as you get later and later in the game, that you can really just annihilate higher level enemies. I've also noticed on survival difficulty, I gain a fuckload more experience. Like, it looks like almost double or triple. Like, killing a rad roach normally nets, I think, 1 or 3 experience. I get 16 experience off of killing a rad roach, so that should tell you how much I get off of killing, say, a deathclaw. In fact, I get significantly more EXP for just killing shit than doing quests. The biggest thing about survival mode, though, is you cannot quick save. There's no quick saving. There's no auto saving. No save on Pip-Boy. No save on Go New Area. No pause quick save. You can't do any of that. The only way to save in survival mode is to sleep in a bed, no matter where that bed is. And if you sleep, you start losing your adrenaline rating. Sleeping in dirty mattresses can get you sick. Of course, you can, if with irregular enough sleeping habits, you can get insomnia and be unable to stay asleep or awake properly, and it will constantly fuck with your fatigue rating, or make you more hungry. These are crazy things. The game also really encourages you to hunt and kill enemies for food, because there's big drawbacks to using drugs on survival mode. You will get really thirsty using stim packs. Using Radaway will suppress your immunity and make you very vulnerable to getting sick. Using stuff like Rad-X, and especially antibiotics to cure illnesses, will make you hungry or tired. And that's really awesome. So it makes you really want to go and get some fucking Deathwing steak or some Yao Guai ribs, because that is the safest way to heal yourself. The next thing that's interesting about that is I have actually done something I've virtually never really done, except for like when engaging huge groups of Deathclaws in previous games in Fallout 4, which is I have ran the fuck away from combat and hid like a coward from enemies. On survival difficulty, enemies hit like dump trucks. Every single thing in the game is fully capable of killing you, even once you get some really serious armor together. I've been brutally poisoned to death by rad scorpions, killed by common raiders who ambushed me, and I have been annihilated by every single explosive under the sun. Instantly killed by Molotovs, instantly killed by frag grenades, instantly killed by missile launchers, and definitely, like everybody who's played Fallout 4 for a significant enough amount of time, even on non-survival difficulty, I've been instantly killed by a fat man. And that's really cool. But the biggest and most transformative thing about survival mode, which makes me recommend it, and this is going to sound brutal, this is going to sound unfair, because you're already like, you just said we can't quick save. Well, that's really gay. But then you're like, oh, it's no matter, right? I can just fast travel to my house. No, you can't. In survival mode, you cannot fast travel. You walk everywhere you go. This transforms the game from a kind of mediocre game into a really, really good game. Because suddenly all that shit that Bethesda gave you to do that you didn't want to do and it seemed really tedious is suddenly vitally important. It becomes vitally important to set up bases where there are safe beds and a reliable source of clean water that won't make you sick. And you're going to want to set up these places that have food and water and beds in them, which makes all of a sudden another settlement needs your help not so ridiculous of a thing. The second thing is you're going to want to note where workbenches. You remember how there was random workbenches that you would never go like, why the fuck would I ever care about this? Why is this power station out in the middle of nowhere, power armor station? Or why do I care about this weapon or armor station? Well, those you can store things in, and they stay in there. So I can actually base out of Diamond City, even though I can't control the settlement. I can still throw all my shit in the workstations and work out of them, and build out of them, and modify shit out of them. In the game where missiles weigh like 7 pounds, and fusion cores weigh like 4 pounds, I can no longer go la-di-da-di-da, I got 200 fusion cores, don't care. I actually have to go like, well, I can only go on so long in this armor before I'm going to have to carry this armor back somewhere to repair it. I have to manually walk it back. Or if I run out of fusion cores, I'm going to have to abandon it somewhere. So like when I went into the glowing sea, I actually set up a base basically in a red rocket station outside of the glowing sea where I could put all my fusion cores and move the power armor there and get all set up. So, and once you start running into like really high level robots, really high level gunners and shit, you start thinking about staging. You start fucking walking around an area and like scoping like, where's a bed so I can save nearby here so I'm not going to lose a ton of progress if I get murdered. And you know, you might want to go like, oh, I might want to store a cache of weapons here, because if you're a big guns guy and you got 10-pound fucking mini nukes on you, you want to like kind of stash those nearby in preparation for attacking certain areas. You know, you're gonna maybe not visit a place for a very long time because it's on the other side of the map. Like when I was based out of Diamond City and doing shit downtown, it takes roughly 10 minutes to sprint at an increased movement speed all the way back to Sanctuary to go get shit out of there or to grab things. And the game might randomly spawn a Deathclaw in my face along the way. There's like, I've noticed random spawns. I've literally had a random spawn of a group of 5 super mutants, all with missile launchers. Every last one of them parked in the middle of the fucking road. I'd never seen anything like it in 300 hours of Fallout 4 gameplay. And I was offended, and I was amazed, and I was stunned. And I won because I'm that good. And, you know, I have found myself not just going for top tier heavy armor and stuff. I've actually seriously built a survival character wearing all shadowed combat armor, which is like the low tier in the armor class thing, because I wanted that much more stealth. I wanted that much more ability to get the jump on enemies, have the element of surprise, and to be able to escape safely. You know, I actually designed a character to operate in nighttime, where I can maybe ambush an Assaultron without it lasering my face in fucking half. You know what I mean? There's certain enemies that are just fucking mind-numbingly difficult to deal with at certain parts of the game. I had actual legitimate feelings of boss fights. Fighting an Institute Courser and fighting Kellogg were obscenely hard on survival mode and required me to use elements of the game I never use. I use mines. You know, use the syringer to try to fuck with an enemy. I'll actually try to frenzy enemies with legendary weapons with frenzy effects. You know, I'll actually use some of the fancy grenades I never wanted to use before. Cryogenic grenades come in hugely in handy against large groups of enemies that move really quickly. So the game is way better than people give it credit for, because the game never pushed a gamer playing on normal or even on very hard. The game doesn't push you to use options it gives you. You're like, who gives a fuck about these pulse mines? You know, who gives a fuck about this kind of grenade or this kind of weapon or this kind of armor? You know, and I gotta tell you, when shit's hitting the fuck out of you, the kind of armor that increases armor class or increases special stats or slows down time, or drugs like Jet suddenly become useful where before they were not useful. So honestly, a lot of the gamers who hate this game, the way the game let them down is it didn't force them to use what the game had to offer. The game's like, here, you can play like a baby if you want to, and the gamer says, I will now play like a baby, and then complain that this game makes me feel like a baby. Well, the gamer didn't push themselves. So that offers an interesting question about Fallout 4, because, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, New Vegas is better. Well, a lot of people got a lot of rose-colored glasses about New Vegas, okay? New Vegas is an obscenely ugly game with really boring and uninspired environments for the most part. And the fun of the game is in the fact that the perk system is sublime, and the level up system is sublime, and the skill system is sublime, and being able to manufacture ammo is sublime. And then Fallout 4, like an idiot, Bethesda took all that shit out and it wasn't in Fallout 4 anymore. But the things that Fallout 4 does that New Vegas can't do is really cool. And nobody who shits on the game has mentioned any of it, because I don't believe that they were smart enough or introspective enough or wanted to challenge themselves enough to reach the true heights of this game. This game should be played on survival mode, period. It should have forced everybody to play it that way. It would have immediately been seen completely differently. So anyway, I've rambled on way long enough. If you got Fallout 4, put it back in, play survival mode, and then tell me you don't feel like you're playing a completely different game. When enemies that previously made you laugh and made you bored now terrify you, and you're actually forced to walk and be engaged with the environment, that you're forced to plot and plan, that you're forced to actually set up bases for the purposes of eating and sleeping and getting water, that you're actually forced to manage your inventory when you can't just carry a bazillion missiles because missiles weigh 7 pounds each, and shit like this. That is what made this game for me. That made me, even though I was a defender of it, I was upset at a lot of it and bored by a lot of it and had that uncanny valley subconscious offense to a lot of it. That was all gone when I started playing survival mode. And it's really interesting that you can basically beat the entire story by the time you're level 25 or so. I'm not even halfway through it, and I'm level 40. Oh, actually, I'm level 52 on survival mode. I'm getting that much experience. The game is that hard. I've had to work that hard to plan to do certain things, plan to fight Kellogg, plan to enter and exit the glowing sea without getting poisoned to death by rad scorpions. Shit like that. Even just the act of getting the power armor down there to stage into the expedition. That is what makes this game go from mediocre to really good, and definitely not bad. Okay? So my original, I think, review score of this game was a 7.5 or 7 out of 10. It's a solid 8 out of 10. Maybe an 8.5, because Far Harbor is that good. The environment is that good. The story is that good. And it definitely, you need to play as different factions. If you only played as the Institute or only as the Brotherhood of Steel, you missed a lot. You realize how much certain factions are lying about things they do. And you're realizing that certain big, major, pivotal battles in those late game stories are really, really different. I will tell you that it is significantly easier by a million fuck miles to assault the Institute with the Brotherhood of Steel than it is to assault the Brotherhood of Steel with the Institute. Fighting the Brotherhood of Steel was way different and significantly harder. Okay? And I'm having way more fun doing Railroad bitch work than I was doing Brotherhood of Steel bitch work. So depending on who you join will fundamentally change your feeling about the game. You'll get access to different weaponry, different stores, different places to live, different people to hang out with, and significantly different gameplay. So if you're not giving yourself a chance to like this game, to try something else, if what you're doing right now is not working for you, then you're not getting your money's worth out of the game, and you only have yourself to blame. A lot of gamers don't like having to make those choices. They don't trust themselves. They're too used to exploiting something that's hard. You actually have to push yourself to play the game in a harder way. To nuzlocke it or something if you feel like you're having too easy of a time. And survival mode is a great way to do that. So you should play survival mode. You should get Far Harbor. If you actually like building stuff, at least the Wasteland Workshop, definitely the Mechanist DLC. There's a couple building DLCs I haven't gotten yet, but a couple of them are actually really, 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 really worth it, even if you only do a little bit of building, because the base game's building needed those extra things. So you should get all the DLC for this. You know, you should buy the season pass if you have none of the DLC. And you should give this game another try, and you should beat it. And you will like it if you give it a chance. The game does struggle really early on, and if you play on normal and rush through the main story and don't explore and don't realize that there's really intricate things where if you played as the Railroad and you see that oh, remember when you played as the Institute and they're talking about this particular thing? Well, if you play as the Railroad, you find out, whoa, that's where the Institute got that thing. And holy shit, they got it through really nefarious means. Like, holy fuck, I didn't realize they were that evil. I always thought people were exaggerating how evil they were when I was playing for the Institute. And then you're like, oh, that's sick as fuck. You know, and so really, you know, and if you feel like the game is maybe too hard, join the Brotherhood of Steel. You get access to incredibly high-powered weaponry and armor, and the support you get from vertebrates and shit is well beyond the support you'd get from, like, the Minutemen and shit. So, just choices you make can make the game easier or harder on yourself. And you should make those choices. You have so much control over the way the game actually plays that if you're dissatisfied with Fallout 4, you have to partially blame yourself. Honestly. Because after a couple hundred hours of the game, I decided to radically change the way I played, and it greatly increased the fun factor, greatly increased the amount of time and the amount of excitement and the amount of adrenaline in impactful moments and actual fear of failure. That was what really changed the experience for me, and that is what you should do for yourself. Okay, enough rambling. Get this shit. Play it on survival mode. And actually try. Okay? Actually push yourself. Because if you play on normal, I'm sorry, you're a big pussy. Okay? A gigantic, gaping pussy. The game is too easy. It is significantly easier than New Vegas. Okay? There's ways, like the enemy AI is smarter and stuff, but ultimately, once you're getting past level 40 or something, if you're playing on not basically very hard, when you're walking around with high-powered legendary weapons and fully upgraded power armor, you're not experiencing any challenge at all. Okay? And the fact that you can always just spam stim packs, and it's the same old story as it's been since Fallout 3. If you can pause, you can heal to full with no consequences. Survival mode and hardcore mode in New Vegas removes that factor of the game. And I honestly think the whole instant healing thing needed to be taken out permanently. And to some extent in Fallout 4, it is. And that's a good thing. And anybody who complains about it is a bitch, okay? So, push yourself. Challenge yourself. Change how you play. There's still a lot of replay value in this game. A ton. Especially now that Far Harbor DLC is out, and there's literally about 7 or 8 ways to complete the main quest of Far Harbor. Which means there's literally 7 or 8, like, unique choices. Including, and I'm serious, calling in the faction from the Commonwealth to just fucking erase whoever's causing the problem, and you can literally just not play it. You can just say, hey, Brotherhood of Steel, come fucking take the fuck over this island, and the whole main quest is just gone. Like, you can seriously do that, and that's actually really cool. I think it takes a lot out of the experience, but if you don't want to fucking deal with it, that's an option. You have these options. Take them. Thanks for watching.